Well, Brandon, thank you so much for talking with me today. We're here at Ecamm Creator Camp.
Yes,
You having a good time?
I am. It's been so much fun.
Yeah. Was it
Yeah.
what you expected?
No, actually. I didn't realize like how like one just like how there's not like a ton of people here, but there's like just the right amount of people so you can actually get to know everybody. And there's like a really strong sense of community here. At a lot of conferences, it can be very much like, what am I going to learn today? And just kind of going through the flow like selfishly. But here it feels like everybody wants to help everybody, and it's a little bit more of a community, which I was really surprised by that, but also like excited about it.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely not NAB.
No, it's definitely not NAB or Cine Gear or any of those other places that we go. This feels more like everybody here, like they say like the Ecamm fam, but it really does feel like there's like a family here. Like everybody gets to know everybody, even if you don't know them, you'll walk up, you can kind of just talk to anybody. And everybody's doing stuff that's so different, which is also like super unique. Because in my industry, everybody's in film or something, or you go to somewhere else and it's like, oh, everyone here is in tech. Here, I mean, I've met people who do bingo. I've met people.
Really?
Yeah, like, I mean, it's just it's so broad in what people are doing, and I personally love that, especially when it comes to learning because, sometimes there's a lot of, like, an echo chamber in your own space where everyone starts, like, influencing one another, and so everyone's content kinda starts to look the same, but then when you start learning from people who are outside of your space, they think so drastically different. Like, I met a lady today or yesterday who makes videos about, like, quilting,
Hmm.
but, I mean, I would never look up her content because I don't know I have no interest in quilting, but we were talking, and she taught me about how she uses a guitar pedal to switch her cameras. And I had never thought about using guitar accessories for my video stuff, and it actually offers more options. So it's just like a conversation like that with somebody in a completely different industry using completely different tools that was able to spark something for me that I was able to learn from, and then I'll apply to my industry, which is like totally different than hers.
Fantastic. Well, I learned something from you today. You gave a phenomenal speech this morning. You had a really interesting concept about off season and on season. Can
Uh,
you explain more about that for our listeners?
Yeah, so for me, I kind of have like this philosophy when it comes to like learning and implementing like through my content and through just my creative work. Like in sports, you have your off-season time period where you are rebuilding, you're growing, you're aggressively trying to, get better at your skill sets. And then you have on-season, which is where you implement everything that you did. And I like to like actively allocate time to those. And so, like for me, as an example, for my YouTube stuff, we cover a lot of tech, and there's a lot of like cameras and just stuff like that that we're always talking about. And there is a season actually that we're kind of in at the time of recording this, between September, October, November, and December, which is kind of like it's our playoff season. It's where all the new cameras are coming out, all the new tech is comber. We even call it Tech Timber or Techtober, and it's like the season, like this is like what we build up to pretty much all year long because this is where we're going to have to be working our hardest. This is playoff season. But then before that time period is what we just call regular season. You're making little tweaks here and there to like, fix things or try to get better, but you're not overly trying to consume more content or try to change or grow because you're in this implementation period. But before that, and this is where I think a lot of people get caught, is in preseason where you are learning, you're watching all the tutorials, you're trying to change things, you're trying to buy new gear and test it out and see if it works for you. And so for me, that's normally like January, February. So I allow myself in January and February the time to like try to learn, try new things, change up my workflow, all that stuff. That's my preseason. And then as we get into March, April, May, June, July, that's kind of our regular season. I don't want to change too much. I want to make sure that like, I'm figuring things out, but like I'm implementing. And then for us, end of the year, that's the playoffs. Don't touch anything, don't change anything, don't try
Right.
any new tools. Wait until, you get back into your next season, your next, off season, and that's when you can try new tools. And it allows me to be more like productive than trying to constantly like learn and adapt and apply. That's really hard to do when you're trying to create consistently.
Good advice. It reminds me of a time, maybe 10 years ago or so, when I was working at a post house. And what we observed with some of our clients was they'd be working on a long running television show, season after season. And they stuck with the same workflow, the same camera to post workflow, because that's what worked. They had a look, everybody knew how to come in and do their job, 9 to 5,
Hmm.
through the whole season. And then when they got to the last season, when they knew it was the last season of that show, that was the time to test and experiment, because they understood that technology had changed in the
Yeah.
last 5 years, 10 years. And if they wanted a job on the next show,
Hmm.
that they needed to be up on the latest technology. So they
Yeah.
sort of saved up their time to learn the new tech and the latest cameras, the latest workflows until that last season when they could experiment.
Yeah, I absolutely love that because it just shows that like at the high end or even on like, the YouTube side of things, like sometimes just having a system that works for you. So like just continuing to implement that. But then if you do want to make tweaks or make changes, knowing when it's time to make those tweaks and changes and then allocating the time accurately to being able to do that, I think is really good.
What do you say to people who denigrate YouTubers, who think that that's not real filmmaking compared to like the Hollywood style of movies and television?
You know, For me, I don't really think one is higher than the other. As somebody who has always had the dream of creating in Hollywood, but I YouTube has always been sort of my catalyst. As someone who creates, I've just learned that like all content sort of competes with itself.
Hmm.
Like whether you like at the end of the day, like we are competing for someone's time, and whatever we make needs to value that time that consumer decides to give us for whatever our piece of art might be. And so regardless to if they're consuming that in a theater or if they're consuming that on a streaming platform on their television or they're watching it on a YouTube video via their TV or
Hmm.
their phone, at the end of the day, like you're creating something that is valuing somebody's time. And so I think as an artist, you can't necessarily decide that like, oh, YouTube doesn't require as much effort or care as like Hollywood films do that might get a film distribution or a theater distribution. But at the end of the day, like your goal should be to take care of the audience and to value them and value their time. And wherever they choose to consume that is just where they choose to consume that. Now, I do believe that there is like a consumption bias depending on where you're consuming content. For example, there's sort of a built-in thought pattern of when you go to the theater. I'm gonna go sit into this room with other people. I'm gonna watch this film for an hour and a half, two, if you're James Cameron, 3 hours
Hmm.
long. Um, but I am committed to this 3 hour thing. When you watch movies at home on Netflix, you are making a similar commitment, but it's not quite the same. You're deciding, okay, I'm going to consume this at home, so I'm a little more comfortable. I don't have to necessarily get dressed, and I might check my phone in the middle of it.
Hmm.
And that's okay because I'm not disturbing anyone else. But when you're watching YouTube, you might be going to YouTube for totally different reasons. You might still want entertainment, but maybe it's a little bit shorter, or the type of entertainment that you're looking for is different. And with YouTube in particular, there are so many other options. Like when you go to a theater, there might be like three or four of the good movies that came out that weekend. When you're on YouTube, there are thousands of other
Hmm.
videos that you can consume in the same sitting. So it does change the viewer's viewing behavior. And so I think as artists, we should appreciate the different mediums for what they
Hmm.
are and play into their strengths because it allows us to then, like I said before, we can, respect their attention and their time because where they're choosing to consume your art form does drastically change their expectations when they show up.
Exactly. And a good storyteller knows how to work within a different medium. And so
Hmm.
they know how to get the viewer's attention right from the start and keep it as
Yes.
needed. They don't have the time in YouTube that they might have had in a feature film in the past.
Exactly. But I think they all sort of help each other,
Hmm.
like I've noticed that like movies today, they've been sort of even pushed to like hook you in a little bit earlier than maybe movies used to when they were in theaters. And
Hmm.
I think that like that actually creates a better experience for the viewer. Because whereas before you might have thought like, oh, I've got them. They're in their seats. I got you for 3 hours. or 2 hours or whatever. It's like now it's like, no, well, what's something I can give them that is of value even early in the film? I don't have
Mhm.
to push all the value to the end. I can try to give you some value at the beginning, which I think movies have learned that from the way people consume via social. But at the
Mm.
same end, I think social has gotten better because social is chasing the same quality that people get in the theater. And ultimately, it just ends up being a better experience for the viewer, which I think is the reason why we're creating this anyway.
Yeah. The interesting thing about social, YouTube, TikTok, and other avenues is that sometimes the creators are learning in public. They're doing their 10,000 hours of the
Yes.
skill set in public, sometimes even live.
Hmm.
And filmmakers in the past didn't necessarily do that. Maybe they learned in front of other classmates, maybe they learned on small indie pictures, and then they get better and better and get on bigger and bigger shows. So you have to hand it to a YouTuber to be willing to get better in front of an audience.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny because, as someone who does YouTube pretty consistently, they will tell you if your art form is not very good.
Yeah.
like the comments will tell you if your lighting's off or the audio sounds bad or
Hmm.
whatever it might be. And so there is a little bit more of like courage required, I think, to fail
Hmm.
publicly.
Yeah.
Now, that said, we've all gone to the movies and saw a movie and was like, that wasn't very good, and the
Yes.
ratings, the Rotten Tomatoes, whatever, come out, and I'm sure the directors feel that the same way a YouTuber feels the negative comments on a YouTube video. So I believe that there's still that learning and that, I don't want to call it public shame, but just like knowing that your art form is out there to the public and is
Hmm.
being judged publicly.
Hmm.
But I do think that, like, as YouTube gives you the ability to take as many at bats as you want to take, and there's no
Yes.
one sort of like stopping you from doing that. And I mean, I don't know the rules of Hollywood, but I'm sure if a director comes out and they make just four flops, the chances that they might get another feature film option might not be on the table anymore.
Right. You're
Uh,
only as good as your last project.
Right. But with YouTube, it's always this opportunity of the next because no one's stopping you. And
Hmm.
your next film or your next project on YouTube could be your best project. And you don't have to necessarily deal with someone else giving you the permission to make it, which is one of the things I personally love about YouTube is that I don't need permission. I can just make what I want to make.
Are you familiar with the work of John Chu, the film director?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Step up.
Step
Trust
up.
me.
Okay.
Like I've been with him for LXD. Like
Yeah.
I grew
Yeah.
up a dancer.
Oh, really?
So John,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I know John very
Phenomenal.
been
And
following
then,
his career for a long
and
time.
you know what he did shortly after that?
But after what?
After the LXD era?
LXD was around the time of Step Up, and then he did Crazy Rich Asians.
Before that. You might
Oh, is
not
that
have.
the musical one?
Yes.
Okay, so I've seen shots from it. Haven't seen that movie yet, but I've seen shots from it because he has a style and
Yes.
it's amazing.
Gorgeous.
Yes.
I love the film. It's Gem and the Holograms.
Yes, yes,
So,
yes.
growing up as a young girl in the 80s, that was my favorite Saturday morning cartoon.
Okay.
And again, the post house I worked at, we did the final color for the movie.
Okay.
And I had sort of gotten some advance notice from the colorist that it looked really amazing. I was so excited to see it. As it happens, I went to an event, which was the Saturday morning, the day after the movie came out.
Mhm.
It was by the nonprofit organization Film Independent. It was a filmmaking conference over the weekend, and John Chu was their keynote speaker. He came in Saturday morning. The movie had completely flopped the day
Oh.
before. He was not in a good mood, and he had the courage to show up anyway. And he just talked about that on stage. Like, it didn't work out. It's really disappointing. And now I've got to figure out what to do.
Mhm.
A couple years later, Crazy Rich Agents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's I mean, I love that he got his second shot. I feel like, it's very hard. I think, and then you might need some time for, like, retrospective and sort of to go through that
Hmm.
process after you have a project come out that you're maybe not quite as proud of, or maybe it's not accepted the way you would hope that it was accepted. But I think as creators, like, if you have that drive, you're gonna keep moving forward.
Hmm.
I don't know how it will translate when ultimately because I have ambitions to make a film and get a theatrical release, and I don't know what will happen. Maybe it'll be a great movie, maybe it won't be. But I do love that YouTube has strengthened that muscle in me to say every
Mm.
project may not be your best project, but there's still something you can learn from it, and then you move on and do the next project. And so that's awesome to hear that even on the, someone as, prolific as John M. Chu is going through something similar. So that's really cool to know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. I am sure you will be a hit when you make that transition. I do have one question for you.
Yes.
When you make that transition, do you think that it will be the traditional theatrical release? Do you think it could be long form on YouTube, or could it be something else?
Recently I've actually been thinking about this a lot because I just in the last year sort of started making the transition into some narrative projects. And so this year is the first year that I've shot 3 features and 2 shorts. It has been a very busy year, but mostly as either a DP or a cam operator. So I
Hmm.
haven't done any of my own projects, nothing I've written just yet. And going through the journey, I have been thinking because some of the projects we've been doing have been straight for streaming platforms. The shorts have been, going to get like a digital release, an online release.
Hmm.
Um, and we have one project that we shot that we are hoping that it will get a theatrical release, but we'll see. A lot of that's out of your control. And for me, I think as I create my own projects, it's really going to come down to how I think the audience needs to consume that story. And just like how, when it comes to the gear, we always think about like, oh, the gear should fit the story.
Hmm.
I think the release should also fit the story. I think there are certain stories that are better told in television. I think there are certain stories that are better told in, streaming releases. And then there are certain stories that should be told theatrically. And I think it's going to come down to the story. Just like I was saying earlier, there is a viewer behavior that is built in depending on how you're choosing to consume the art form.
Hmm.
And to me, at least for where I am right now, I believe that the story should dictate if it gets a theatrical release or if it gets a streaming release, if it is a story that should be a 3-part film or if it is a 10 episode series. It really does come down to the story. And I think
Yes.
I'm going to just focus on finding the stories that I really want to tell, writing those stories out, and then determining what median is best.
Mhm.
That said, if the story needs to come out and there is no way for me to get it in theaters, I love the fact that we at least do have YouTube to say, I have a story that I want to tell and I can't get it out necessarily maybe the way I wanted to, but I can at least get it out. And that to me is one of the best things about sort of the democratization of just film and art in general is that like you can get your art out and no one's going to stand in your way.
Awesome. Brandon Washington, you introduced yourself on stage this morning as filmmaker, YouTuber, podcaster, artist, whatever. Let's end on storyteller.
Yeah, storyteller. I love that.
All right. Thanks.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.